This wasn't my birthday party. It was Liam's showcase. A meticulously curated exhibit of his success, his connections, his impeccable taste. And I, Elara, was the centerpiece. The beautifully dressed, silently adoring girlfriend, the final proof that Liam Archer had it all. For 5 years I had played this part. 5 years since I'd met him in college. A bright-eyed art history major dazzled by the business school prodigy with a disarming smile and a promise of a gilded life. Back then the controlling nature felt like protectiveness. The constant critiques of my friends, my clothes, my dreams. They felt like a man who just wanted the best for me. But the gold was flaking off, revealing the cold, hard steel of his ego beneath. Smile, darling. Liam's voice was a low murmur in my ear, his hand a possessive weight on the small of my back. The Van Horns are watching. You look like you're at a funeral, not your own birthday. I forced my lips into the practiced, gentle curve he preferred. It never reached my eyes anymore. Just a little overwhelmed, that's all. It's a beautiful party, Liam. Thank you. He preened, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Of course it is. Only the best for my girl. Your girl. A possession. An accessory. I took a sip of champagne, the bubbles stinging my throat. My eyes wandered to the cityscape sprawling beyond the glass barriers. Freedom felt like that skyline, distant, beautiful, and utterly unreachable. My salvation, as it often was, came in the form of my best friend, Chloe. She sidled up to me, a whirlwind of vibrant pink silk and genuine warmth, her red curls a defiant splash of color in the sea of beige and black. There's my birthday girl, she chirped, pulling me into a hug that felt like a lifeline. She smelled of vanilla and rebellion. You surviving this circus? Barely, I whispered into her ear. He vetoed the band I wanted. Said they were too bohemian for the ambience. Chloe pulled back, her green eyes flashing with familiar fire. One of these days, Elara, you're going to realize you don't need his permission to breathe. This is your day. You should be surrounded by people who actually know you, not these corporate pot people. She wasn't wrong. Scanning the crowd, I saw Liam's father's business partners, his mother's charity board members, a smattering of models and minor celebrities he'd collected for clout. My friends, the few I had left after Liam's systematic alienation, were conspicuously absent, save for Chloe, who was too fiercely loyal and from too influential a family for Liam to dismiss entirely. I know, I sighed. It's just complicated. It's really not, she said softly, squeezing my hand. But we'll get through tonight. And then tomorrow you and I are getting disgustingly drunk on cheap wine and watching terrible rom-coms. A real celebration. The knot in my chest loosened slightly. Chloe was my anchor, the one who remembered the Elara before Liam. The one who painted until 3 a.m., who laughed too loudly, who dreamed of opening her own gallery. The party's energy shifted then, a subtle current that rippled through the crowd. I followed the collective gaze to the entrance. And there he was. A man I'd never seen before, yet he commanded the space with an effortless, quiet authority that was the antithesis of Liam's loud ownership. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out a simple, well-tailored navy suit, not a tuxedo. His hair was a tousled mess of dark brown, and his eyes, even from across the room, seemed to hold a glint of wry amusement, as if he found the whole spectacle mildly entertaining. Who is that? I breathed, more to myself than to Chloe. But she heard me. Oh, that's the new acquisition. Literally. His company. Archer Tech just bought him out. That's Kalen Thorne. Kalen Thorne. The name suited him. Solid, a little rugged, hinting at storms and strength. I watched as Liam descended upon him, the shark-smelling new blood. Liam's smile was wide, but his posture was competitive, already sizing Kalen up. Kalen, for his part, listened calmly, his responses short and measured. He didn't seem impressed by Liam nor intimidated. He was just present. And then, as if feeling the weight of my stare, his gaze lifted from Liam and found mine across the crowded room. It wasn't a dramatic movie-style locking of eyes. It was a quiet, searching look. He didn't smile. He simply held my gaze for a moment that stretched, suspended in time. In that single look, I didn't feel appraised or owned. I felt seen. It was so disarming, so unfamiliar, that I was the first to look away, my heart hammering against my ribs for a reason that had nothing to do with Liam. Down, girl, Chloe teased, a knowing smirk on her face. That one looks like trouble. The good kind. Don't be ridiculous. I muttered, taking another gulp of champagne. But the seed was planted. The evening wore on. I performed my duties, making small talk, accepting hollow compliments on my dress, my hair, the party. All the while I was acutely aware of Kalen's presence. I didn't seek him out, but my senses were tuned to his frequency. I heard his low, quiet laugh from a group nearby, a sound that was genuine and unforced. I saw him politely extricate himself from a conversation with a woman who was clearly flirting, his manner polite but firm. He was a mystery, an island of calm in Liam's turbulent sea of ego. It was during a lull, while I was momentarily alone near the dessert table, that he approached. "Happy birthday, Alara." My name on his lips was a shock. It sounded different, more substantial. I turned, finding him closer than I'd expected. Up close, his eyes were a startling shade of hazel, green and gold flecks surrounding dark pupils. He had a small, faint scar bisecting his left eyebrow. "Thank you," I managed, my voice slightly breathless. "I'm sorry you have me at a disadvantage. You know my name, but—" "Kalen," he supplied. Liam was thorough in his introductions earlier. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "He's very proud of you." There was no malice in his tone, but the statement hung in the air, loaded. Proud like one is of a prize-winning poodle. "He throws a good party," I deflected, gesturing vaguely at the opulence around us. Kalen's gaze didn't leave my face. "Does he? Seems a bit polished for a birthday. Where's the mess? The fun?" His words resonated so deeply it was almost painful. I'm not sure fun is on the approved agenda for the evening." He picked up a macaron from a towering platter, examining it with a critical eye. "A shame. Birthdays should have fun. And cake. Especially cake. The good, slightly too sweet makes a mess kind." I couldn't help but smile, a real one this time. "I think the chef flown in from Paris might take offense to that." "Some things are worth offending a French chef for," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He was about to say something else when Liam's voice cut through the air, sharp and possessive. "Alara. There you are. The cake is ready." Liam strode over, sliding an arm around my waist and pulling me firmly against his side, a clear signal to Kalen. "Kalen, I see you've met the guest of honor. Don't monopolize her now. The main event is about to begin." Kalen's expression smoothed into a polite mask. "Of course. It was a pleasure, Alara. Happy birthday." He gave a slight nod and melted back into the crowd. Liam watched him go, his jaw tight. Odd guy. Brilliant with AI but no social graces. "Come on, darling. Time to blow out the candles." He led me towards the center of the rooftop, where a monstrous 5-tiered confection stood, a glittering edifice of sugar and fondant. It was magnificent and utterly soulless. The crowd gathered around, phones were raised, and a sickening sense of dread pooled in my stomach. This was it. The pinnacle of the performance. The smiling, grateful girlfriend making a wish under the adoring gaze of her perfect boyfriend. But as I stood there, the flickering candlelight dancing in my eyes, I knew my wish was already changing. It was no longer a passive hope for things to get better. It was a quiet, desperate plea for an escape route. For the strength to leave this gilded cage, even if it meant flying into the unknown. I took a deep breath, the song of Happy Birthday ringing in my ears, and prepared to blow out the flames, little knowing that the real fire was just about to be ignited. The chorus of Happy Birthday swelled around me, a dissonant blend of genuine effort from a few and perfunctory obligation from most. The camera lights from dozens of phones felt like interrogation beams, pinning me to the spot. I stood before the colossal cake, a ridiculous monument to Liam's wealth, not my joy. It was vanilla bean with raspberry coulis, Liam's favorite, not mine. I would have chosen dark chocolate, something with depth and a hint of bitterness. My eyes scanned the smiling, expectant faces. Chloe was beaming, her phone pointed at me, her smile a genuine burst of light in the artificial glow. And then my gaze snagged on Kalen Thorne. He wasn't singing. He was just watching me, his head tilted slightly, an unreadable expression on his face. It wasn't pity. It was more like recognition. As if he could see the invisible strings Liam was pulling, making me dance this marionette's jig. I dragged my eyes away, focusing on the forest of candles. Make a wish, Alara. But what was left to wish for? Different life. The courage to walk away? My thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind, a 5-year storm finally reaching its peak. I leaned forward, took a deep breath and blew. A cheer went up as the flames died in a puff of smoke. The immediate performative part was over. Relief washed over me. Now it was just cake. I could survive cake. Liam stepped forward, the silver cake server gleaming in his hand. He flashed his trademark, camera-ready smile at the crowd. "All right, everyone. Time for the birthday girl to get the first slice." This was the script. He would cut a piece, feed me a delicate bite, I would laugh prettily, and then the staff would take over. Simple. Predictable. Safe. But then his eyes flickered over my shoulder and his smile shifted. It became sharper, more predatory. I followed his gaze and my blood ran cold. Isabella Rossi was standing there, a vision in crimson silk. A rising star in the art world, a socialite, and Liam's most recent and persistent obsession. She was laughing, a tinkling, artificial sound, her hand resting on the arm of an elderly gallery owner. But her eyes were on Liam and they held a challenge, a promise of something wild and exciting that a stable 5-year relationship was not. I saw the calculation in Liam's eyes in that horrifying, suspended second. I saw the desperate need to impress, to prove he wasn't just a suit, that he could be spontaneous, dangerous, fun. He needed a grand gesture to capture her attention, to show her he was the alpha in this room, in this relationship, in my life. And I, his placid, predictable girlfriend, was the perfect prop. The cake server clattered onto the table, forgotten. "No," I whispered, the word a desperate, silent plea lost in the chatter of the crowd. My muscles tensed, ready to step back, but it was too late. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, utterly powerless to stop it. His hand, the one that had held mine through 2 family funerals, the one that had wiped tears from my cheeks after his own harsh words, plunged into the top tier of the beautiful, soulless cake. Time seemed to warp. The laughter and chatter faded into a dull roar in my ears. I saw Chloe's smile vanish, replaced by wide-eyed horror. I saw Kalen's posture go rigid, his expression hardening into something cold and dangerous. And then the world exploded in a blast of vanilla bean sponge, raspberry coulis, and buttercream. The impact was brutal. It wasn't a playful smush, it was a slap. A hard, open-handed thrust of cake and frosting that smashed into my face with enough force to snap my head back. The sugary mass filled my nostrils, my mouth, clogged my eyelashes. The sharp corner of the cake board dug into my cheekbone. For a moment there was absolute silence. A stunned, breathless vacuum. Then a single sharp laugh rang out, Isabella's. It was followed by a few nervous, uncertain titters from the crowd, quickly dying as they processed what had just happened. I stood there, frozen, unable to breathe, unable to see. The cake was cold and cloying, a sweet tomb. My dress, a delicate ivory silk chiffon that had cost more than my first car, was ruined, splattered with garish pink and red. But the physical shock was nothing compared to the emotional evisceration. The utter humiliation. The complete and total annihilation of my dignity, in front of everyone who was anyone in our world. He had reduced me to a punchline, a slapstick bit in his desperate play for another woman's attention. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I heard Liam's voice, loud and booming, dripping with forced jollity. "Oh, come on, everyone. It's a joke. A birthday tradition in my family. Lighten up. She's fine, aren't you, darling? She's fine." Those 2 words were the final, shattering blow. They were not an apology. They were a command. He was telling me, telling everyone how I was supposed to feel. How I was supposed to react. I was to laugh, to be a good sport, to validate his cruelty as fun. But I wasn't fine. Slowly, mechanically, I raised my hands. I wiped the thick layer of cake from my eyes, my vision blurry with tears and frosting. I blinked, clearing my sight. The first person I saw was Chloe. Her face was pale with fury, her hands clenched into fists. She took a step forward, but I gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of my head. Not now. My gaze then swept the crowd. I saw a kaleidoscope of expressions: pity, shock, amusement, embarrassment. And then I found Liam. He was beaming, his arms slung around a guy from his rugby team, looking for all the world like the king of the castle. He didn't look remorseful. He looked triumphant. He had impressed Isabella. I could see her smiling at him, a new, appreciative glint in her eyes. His eyes met mine and his smile didn't falter. It was a smile that said, "See? I told you you'd be fine. Now play your part. And in that moment something inside me broke. Not into pieces but into something new. Something hard and sharp and clear. The old Alara, the one who sought his approval, who feared his displeasure, who believed she deserved these little corrections, died in that sugary, humiliating grave. The new Alara took a slow, deep breath, the scent of vanilla and raspberries suddenly nauseating. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw a tantrum. I simply turned. With a stillness that felt more powerful than any outburst, I began to walk. I walked away from the cake, away from the crowd, away from Liam. I moved through the parted guests, a ghost in a ruined silk dress, leaving a trail of crumbs and stunned silence in my wake. I heard Liam's voice again, a note of confusion finally creeping in. Alara? Hey, where are you going? It was a joke. I didn't look back. The only sound as I pushed through the glass doors and into the sterile quiet of the penthouse interior was the sharp, distinct click of my heels on the marble floor, and the even sharper, more final click of the lock in my soul, turning forever. The elevator doors slid shut, muffling the distant, chaotic hum of the party. In the sudden, sterile silence, the only sound was the ragged pull of my own breath and the soft plink of cake frosting dripping from my chin onto the polished brass floor. I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls. A stranger stared back. A grotesque, sugar-coated clown with wide, shocked eyes. My carefully styled hair was a stiff, sticky helmet. My makeup was a ruined watercolor of mascara, foundation, and raspberry coulis. The left side of my face, where the cake board had connected, was already beginning to throb with a dull, insistent ache. But it was the eyes that held me captive. They weren't crying. They were simply empty. The humiliation was too deep for tears. It was a nuclear blast that had scorched everything inside me, leaving a flat, ashen landscape. The elevator descended. Ding. The penthouse level. Ding. The private foyer. My body moved on autopilot. I walked out of the elevator, across the cold marble of the expansive entryway, and into the vast, minimalist living room that had never felt like a home. It was Liam's domain. All sharp angles, cold metals, and expensive, uncomfortable furniture. There were no personal photos, no messy art projects, no traces of me beyond the few designer items he'd approved of. It was a showroom and I had been its most prominent display. I walked straight to the guest powder room, avoiding the master suite he and I shared. I couldn't bear to see that room, the bed, the closet where my clothes hung neatly beside his. A curated collection of the woman he wanted me to be. In the stark white light of the bathroom, the damage was even more apparent. A faint red mark was blooming on my cheekbone. I looked broken. I turned on the tap, the water roaring in the quiet room. I didn't look in the mirror again. I just leaned over the basin and began to wash. I scrubbed at the cake, the frosting, the shame. The water ran pink, then cloudy white. I scrubbed until my skin was raw and stinging, but I couldn't seem to get the feeling of it off, the sticky, cloying residue of his betrayal. When my face was clean, stripped bare, I looked up. The woman in the mirror was pale, her eyes hollowed out with shock. But there was a new tightness around her mouth. A flinty resolve that had never been there before. He thought I would be fine. The thought was a drumbeat in my skull, growing louder, more insistent. He thought I would laugh. He thought I would clean myself up and come back out a little embarrassed but ultimately compliant. He thought my love for him, my dependence on him, was so absolute that I would absorb any insult, any humiliation. And the most terrifying part was, a week ago he would have been right. But not tonight. I walked out of the bathroom and into the walk-in closet off the foyer, the one used for guest coats. I ignored the rows of Liam's expensive outerwear and went straight to the back, to a dusty old duffel bag I'd used for gym clothes in a life that felt centuries ago. It was the most unassuming, un-Liam-like thing I could find. Then I began to move with a purpose I didn't know I possessed. I didn't go for the designer gowns, the handbags, the jewelry. Those were trophies, payment for services rendered. I went to the small locked drawer in my dressing room, the one Liam mockingly called my nostalgia box. He'd never shown any interest in its contents. I used a bobby pin to jimmy the cheap lock, a skill my college roommate, a woman Liam had deemed a bad influence, had taught me. Inside were the artifacts of the real Alara. My grandmother's locket. A stack of letters from Chloe written during the summers we were apart. A small clay pot I'd made in a pottery class, lopsided and perfect. A USB drive containing my digital portfolio, the art history essays, the gallery plans I'd drafted and abandoned. My passport. The debit card for a secret savings account I'd been funding for 2 years with small amounts from a freelance art authentication gig Chloe had thrown my way. It didn't have much, but it was mine. I emptied the drawer into the duffel bag. Next, I went to my wardrobe and pulled out the clothes Liam hated. A pair of worn, comfortable jeans, a few soft, faded band t-shirts, a chunky, hand-knitted sweater my mother had made me before she passed. Practical, comfortable me. I changed out of the ruined silk dress, leaving it in a sad, glittering heap on the floor. The simple cotton of the t-shirt against my clean skin felt like a homecoming. My phone buzzed incessantly in the tiny clutch I'd carried. I pulled it out. The screen was a flood of notifications. Liam 12 missed calls. Chloe 25 missed calls, 15 texts. That unknown number, 1 new text. I opened Chloe's messages first. Chloe, Elara, where are you okay? Chloe, I'm going to murder him. I swear to God. I have a butter knife and I'm not afraid to use it. Chloe, please answer me. I'm so worried. Chloe, the party is in shambles. He's trying to play it off but everyone is horrified. Kalen Thorne looked like he was going to rip Liam's head off. Chloe, just tell me you're safe. I'll come get you. Anywhere. Anytime. A sob caught in my throat but I swallowed it down. I typed a quick reply. Me, I'm safe. I'm at the penthouse. I'm leaving. Don't do anything stupid. I'll call you soon. I promise. Then I opened the text from the unknown number. Unknown. This is Kalen Thorne. Chloe gave me your number. I just wanted to say that what happened was unacceptable. If you need anything, a place to go, someone to talk to, please don't hesitate. My breath hitched. Kalen. The quiet man with the stormy eyes. He'd seen it all. And he hadn't laughed. He'd been angry on my behalf. A strange, warm flicker of something, gratitude, connection, ignited in the frozen wasteland inside me. I saved his number but didn't reply. Not yet. Finally, I listened to one of Liam's voicemails. His voice was a mixture of irritation and forced calm. Elara, for God's sake, where did you go? It was a joke. Everyone is asking about you. You're making a scene. Come back upstairs, clean up, and let's salvage the night. Isabella thinks you're overreacting. Don't be so sensitive, darling. Don't be so sensitive. The phrase was a key that unlocked the final chain. It was what he always said when he hurt me. When he criticized my weight, my friends, my ambitions. When he forgot my birthday 2 years ago because of a critical business meeting. Don't be so sensitive. I deleted the voicemail. I blocked his number. The final step. I opened my laptop and went to the shared cloud drive where we stored all our photos. 5 years of my life. Holidays, parties, vacations. I scrolled through them and for the first time I didn't see love or happiness. I saw a performance. My smile was always a little too tight, my eyes never quite reaching the camera's lens. I was a ghost in my own life. I selected all the files, thousands of them, and moved them to the trash. Then I emptied it. It was symbolic but it felt necessary. A digital scorched earth policy. I slung the duffel bag over my shoulder. It was light. My entire life, the one that mattered, fit into one bag. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. I took one last look around the penthouse. The floor-to-ceiling windows showed the glittering city, the same view that had felt like a prison an hour ago. Now it looked like a map of possibilities. I walked out of the penthouse, closing the door softly behind me. I didn't slam it. There was no drama in my exit. The drama had been his. My leaving was a quiet final sentence. In the elevator down to the lobby, I called the only person I trusted completely. Chloe, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm out. Can I come over? Her response was immediate. I'm already in the car circling the block. I'll be at the front entrance in 60 seconds. Don't move. The elevator doors opened into the opulent lobby. The night concierge gave my duffel bag and casual clothes a curious look but said nothing. I walked out through the rotating doors and into the cool night air. A moment later, Chloe's beat-up, cherry-red Volkswagen Beetle screeched to a halt at the curb. She jumped out, her face a mask of fury and concern, and ran around the car to pull me into a bone-crushing hug. You're okay, she whispered fiercely into my hair. You're okay. We're going to my place. I have ice cream, whiskey, and a detailed plan involving rusty spoons and Liam's nether regions. For the first time since the cake hit my face, I felt a genuine emotion. It wasn't happiness. It was the first fragile stirring of safety. Of being seen not as a possession but as a person. As I slid into the passenger seat of her messy, familiar car, I took one last look up at the glittering tower that had been my home. I didn't feel a thing. I was already gone. Chloe's apartment was a beautiful, chaotic mess. Canvases leaned against walls, half-finished sculptures shared space with takeout containers, and books were stacked in precarious towers on every available surface. It was the antithesis of Liam's sterile penthouse, and it smelled of turpentine, coffee, and home. The moment the door closed behind us, the dam broke. The shock that had held me together like a shell began to crack, and a violent, body-racking tremor took over. I stood in the middle of her living room, clutching my duffel bag, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Chloe didn't say a word. She just guided me to her overstuffed sofa, draped a crocheted blanket over my shoulders, and pressed a large glass of amber liquid into my hands. "Drink," she commanded softly. I obeyed. The whiskey burned a path down my throat, a welcome grounding heat that slowly began to push back the icy tremors. I took another sip, then another, until the glass was empty and the shaking had subsided to a faint quiver in my hands. I started, but the words wouldn't come. "How did you articulate that level of betrayal?" "I know," Chloe said, her voice thick with emotion. She sat beside me, pulling her knees up to her chin. "I saw the whole thing, Alara. I saw his face when he looked at Isabella. It was calculated. It was vile. He thought I would be fine," I whispered, the phrase that had become my mantra of horror. "He's a narcissistic idiot who has never once considered that you have feelings independent of his own," she spat. "But listen to me. What he did. That wasn't just a dick move. That was abuse. Public, humiliating, psychological abuse. You have nothing to be embarrassed about. The embarrassment is all his. Everyone saw it." "Did they?" asked my voice small. "They were laughing." A few nervous idiots laughed for half a second before they realized it wasn't a consensual bit. The rest were mortified. I saw Mrs. Van Horn's face. She looked like she'd swallowed a bug. And Kalen Thorne. God, I thought he was going to have an aneurysm. He actually took a step toward Liam before his friend held him back. His text was still burning a hole in my phone. "He texted me." Chloe's eyebrows shot up. "Did he now? Mr. Strong and Silent type moves fast. What did he say?" I pulled out my phone and showed her. She read it, a slow smile spreading across her face. I officially retract my "he's trouble" statement. He's a goddamn knight in slightly rumpled armor. You should reply. And say what? Thanks for not enjoying my public humiliation? How about, thank you for your concern. I'm safe. Keep it simple. Gauge the response. She nudged me. Come on. A little distraction from the pit of despair is good for the soul. Hesitantly, I typed out a message to Kalen. Thank you, Kalen. That's very kind. I'm safe and with a friend. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. My heart did a stupid little flip. Kalen, I'm glad to hear that. For what it's worth, he lost a lot of respect tonight. And you gained it. The way you walked away, it was the most powerful thing I've seen in a long time. I showed the reply to Chloe. She fanned her face dramatically. Oh wow. Skid. He's not just sorry for you, he's impressed by you. That's the good stuff. A tiny, fragile warmth bloomed in my chest. He saw the strength in my exit, not the weakness in my flight. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. I sighed and answered. Alara, honey. We just got a very strange call from Liam. He said you had some kind of meltdown at your party and ran off? What on earth is going on? Are you okay? I could hear the worry in her voice, but also the subtle pressure to smooth things over. My parents adored Liam. He was the son of old money from a good family, a provider. They had never quite understood my quiet discontent. I took a deep breath. Mom, Liam didn't tell you the whole story. As a joke, to impress another woman, he smashed my entire birthday cake into my face. As hard as he could. In front of 200 people. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. He what? Lara, that can't be right. Liam wouldn't. He did, Mom. I have a bruise on my face from it. It was humiliating. And when I didn't find it funny, he told me I was being too sensitive and making a scene. So I left. For good. Another silence, longer this time. "Oh, Ilara," she finally said, her voice soft with a dawning understanding. "My poor girl. Where are you?" "I'm at Chloe's." "Good. Good. You stay there as long as you need." There was a new steel in her voice now. "Your father and I will have words with him." "No, Mom. Don't. It's over. I'm done having words. I'm just done." We talked for a few more minutes, the dynamic shifting permanently. I was no longer their little girl in a troubled relationship. I was a woman who had drawn a line in the sand. I spent the next 2 days in a cocoon of Chloe's making. We ate junk food, watched terrible television, and she let me talk and cry and rage. She never once said, "I told you so," though she had every right. On the third morning, I woke up on her sofa bed, and the crushing grief had been replaced by a clear, cold purpose. I needed a plan. A real one. I unblocked Liam's number, bracing myself for an onslaught. It came immediately. Dozens of texts, vacillating between anger, pleading, and condescension. "Liam, Ilara, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Come home so we can talk about this like adults." "Liam, I'm sorry, okay? I went too far. But you have to admit you're overreacting." "Liam, Isabella means nothing to me. It was a stupid moment." "Liam, your stuff is here. Your life is here. You can't just hide at Chloe's forever." "Liam, people are talking. You're damaging my reputation." The last one made me snort. Of course. It was always about him. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I called my bank to confirm my secret savings were secure. I called a lawyer Chloe recommended, a fierce woman named Brenda who specialized in high-asset, high-conflict separations. "The cake incident is gold," Brenda said in a no-nonsense tone during our brief phone consultation. "It demonstrates a pattern of psychological abuse and public humiliation. It will help immensely with the restraining order." The restraining order. The words were so final, so serious. But as I thought about the escalating texts, I knew it was necessary. Liam didn't see a boundary he wouldn't cross. "I'll draft the paperwork," Brenda continued. "We'll cite the cake assault and the subsequent harassment. We'll also file for the division of assets. Do you have a list of what you brought into the relationship?" "Just my student debt," I said wryly. "Which he paid off. Consider that a gift. Don't worry, Lara. We'll get you free and clear." After I hung up, I felt lighter. I had an army now. Chloe, a pit bull lawyer, and my own reawakened spine. I was staring out Chloe's window, sipping coffee and mentally composing a text to my old professor about potential work, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something told me to answer. "Ilara, it's Kalen Thorne. I hope it's all right that I'm calling." His voice was a low, calm baritone, and it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "Kalen." "Hi. Yes, it's fine. I won't keep you long. I wanted to check in. See how you're holding up." "I'm managing," I said, surprised by my own honesty. "Some moments are better than others. But I'm putting a plan together." "Good," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "That's good to hear. The reason I'm calling, and please feel free to say no, is that I have a proposition for you." I stiffened slightly. A proposition? Was this going to be a pity offer? Or something worse? He seemed to sense my hesitation. "It's strictly professional. My company, Ethelgard AI, is expanding into the art world. We're developing technology for provenance tracking and forgery detection. I need a consultant. Someone with a sharp eye and a deep understanding of art history, who isn't entrenched in the old boy network. Chloe mentioned you were looking for work, and your credentials are impressive." I was speechless. This wasn't pity. This was a lifeline. A real, tangible opportunity to use my degree to build something for myself. I don't know what to say. "Say you'll come to my office tomorrow. Let's talk. No pressure. Just a conversation." I thought of Liam's texts, his belief that I was helpless without him. I thought of my dusty portfolio and the dreams I'd packed away. "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "Yes, I'd like that. Just send me the details." "I will. And Ilara." He paused. "For what it's worth, I'm looking forward to it." As I ended the call, I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of the TV. The hollowed-out look was gone. In its place was a flicker of anticipation. of excitement. Liam had thrown a cake at me to impress another woman, thinking it would prove his power. But his act of humiliation had set in motion a chain of events that was giving me everything he'd never wanted me to have. My freedom, my career, and the beginning of a connection built on respect, not possession. The revenge, I was starting to realize, wouldn't be something I actively sought. It would be my success. And it was already beginning. The offices of Ethelgard AI were nothing like the cold, imposing tower that housed Archer Tech located in a converted warehouse in a revitalized part of the city. The space was open, flooded with natural light from huge industrial windows, and buzzed with a quiet, creative energy. There were whiteboards covered in complex algorithms, but also modern art pieces and lush green plants. It felt like a place where ideas were born, not just executed. I stood in the lobby, my heart performing a frantic tap dance against my ribs. I'd worn my own clothes, a simple, well-tailored black dress and a blazer, an outfit that felt professional but was entirely my choice, not Liam's approved style. It was a small thing, but it felt significant. A young woman with purple-tipped hair and a nose ring greeted me with a warm smile. "Alara, Kaylin is expecting you. Right this way." She led me through the open-plan space. I caught snippets of conversation about neural networks and Renaissance pigmentation. It was intoxicating. Kaylin's office was a glass-walled cube in the corner, offering a stunning view of the river. He was standing by a whiteboard studying a complex diagram, his back to me. He wore dark jeans and a gray Henley, the sleeves pushed up to his elbows, revealing strong forearms. He looked more like a sculptor than a tech CEO. He turned as we entered, and his face broke into a genuine smile that reached his eyes, crinkling the skin at their corners. "Alara, you came." "I did," I said, my voice thankfully steady. "Thank you for the invitation." He gestured to a comfortable-looking armchair opposite a modern, minimalist desk. "Please have a seat. Can I get you anything?" "Tea. Coffee would be great. Black." He nodded to his assistant, who disappeared. He sat in the chair next to mine, not behind his desk, a gesture that immediately put me at ease. He wasn't holding court, he was having a conversation. "So," he began, leaning back and crossing an ankle over his knee. "How are you really?" The directness of the question threw me. I was prepared to talk about art history, about my CV. I wasn't prepared for someone to actually care about the answer. "I'm navigating," I said, deciding on honesty. "Some days are about lawyer meetings and restraining orders. Other days are about remembering who I am without the last 5 years of my life." He nodded, his expression serious. "Brenda Shaw is the best. You're in good hands." He'd clearly done his homework. "As for the rest, from what I saw, who you are is someone with remarkable resilience. Walking away from that with your head held high took more strength than most people possess." His words were a balm. He wasn't praising my looks or my social graces. He was praising my strength. It was a novel experience. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means a lot." The coffee arrived, and we sipped in a comfortable silence for a moment before he shifted gears. "All right, down to business. Ethelgard's new project, Artemis, is a forensic AI for the art world. The goal is to create a system that can analyze high-resolution images of a painting, cross-reference it with a global database of materials, brushstroke techniques, and historical data, and flag potential forgeries or misattributions with a 99.9% accuracy rate. The tech is solid. What we lack is the nuanced human understanding of art. The context, the history, the soul of the thing. That's where you come in." He looked at me, his hazel eyes alight with passion. "I need someone to help train the AI to ask the right questions. Why would a forger use this particular pigment here? How does the aging of a crackle pattern in a Dutch master differ from an Italian one? This isn't a data entry job, Alara. It's a collaboration. You would be the bridge between the cold logic of the code and the warm, messy, brilliant history of human creation." I was captivated. This was it. This was the intersection of my passion and the modern world. A project with purpose and depth. It was everything I'd ever wanted and never dared to ask for. "It sounds incredible," I breathed. My master's thesis was actually on the use of anachronistic materials in forged old masters. A slow, brilliant smile spread across his face. "I know. I read it." My jaw dropped. You what?" I wanted to be sure I wasn't just offering you this because I felt sorry for you, he said, his gaze direct and unapologetic. I was impressed by your work long before I ever met you at that party. Your analysis of the School of Rembrandt pieces was sharper than half the so-called experts I've consulted with. You have a gift, Ilara. One that has been underutilized. I felt a blush creep up my neck. No one had ever taken my academic work that seriously, least of all Liam, who had called it a charming hobby. We talked for over an hour. We debated the merits of X-ray fluorescence versus infrared spectroscopy for underdrawing analysis. We discussed the ethical implications of AI authentication devaluing human experts. The conversation was a vigorous, intellectual tennis match, and for the first time in years I felt my mind truly come alive. He wasn't condescending. He listened, he challenged, he respected my opinions. It was the most exhilarating professional interaction of my life. So, he said finally, a playful glint in his eye. Are you interested? Are you kidding? I laughed, a real, unforced sound that surprised even me. I'm more than interested. I'm terrified and thrilled. Good. That's the best combination. He stood up and offered me his hand. Welcome to Ethelgard, Ilara. Let's go build something amazing. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and reassuring. It felt like a promise. As I left the office an hour later, a signed contract in my bag and a new employee badge in my hand, I felt like I was floating. The city looked different. The sounds were more vibrant, the colors more intense. I had a job. A real, challenging, meaningful job that was entirely mine. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. Chloe, well? Don't leave me in suspense. How was Mr. Tall, dark, and employing? I grinned and typed back. He read my master's thesis. I have a job. A real one. We're building an AI to catch art forgers. Her reply was a string of emojis. Explosion symbols, a microscope, a flexing bicep, and a heart. I knew it. I'm so proud of you. Drinks on me tonight to celebrate. As I walked towards the subway, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Liam. My lawyer had advised me not to block him entirely yet, as his messages could be used as evidence. I opened the text. Liam, I know you're staying with Chloe. This has gone on long enough. I'm coming over there tonight to talk. We need to fix this. The euphoria of the morning evaporated, replaced by a cold dread. I'm coming over. The words were a threat. He wasn't asking, he was telling. He still believed he had the right to access me, to fix me on his terms. My hands trembled as I dialed Brenda, my lawyer. He's threatening to come to my friend's apartment, I said, my voice shaking. Is the restraining order filed? She asked, all business. Yes, this morning. Then he's about to have a very unpleasant surprise. Do not engage. If he shows up, you call 911 immediately. You are protected by the law now, Ilara. He has no power here. I hung up, taking deep, calming breaths. Brenda was right. I was no longer the woman he could intimidate. I had the law on my side. I had a job. I had friends. I had a life. I texted Chloe, warning her. Her response was immediate and fierce. Chloe, let him try. I've been practicing my right hook on a punching bag with his face taped to it. I smiled, but the knot of anxiety remained. The old fear was a tenacious ghost. I found myself scrolling through my contacts, my thumb hovering over a new entry. Kaylin. I didn't know why, but I felt a compulsion to tell him. Maybe because he'd seen the monster up close. Maybe because his calm strength felt like an anchor in my newly chaotic world. Hesitantly, I typed a message. Just a heads up. Liam is threatening to come to Chloe's tonight. My lawyer is on it and we're prepared. I just thought you should know. The 3 dots appeared instantly. Kaylin, thank you for telling me. Do you want me to come over? Having a witness can sometimes de-escalate these situations. The offer was so simple, so straightforward. No drama, no macho posturing. Just support. Me, I think we're okay, but thank you. Truly. Kaylin, understood. My phone will be on and volume up all night. Don't hesitate. I put my phone away, the knot in my stomach loosening. I wasn't in this alone. I had an army and it was growing. The game had changed. Liam was still playing by the old rules, the rules of dominance and control. But I was playing a new game now, on a field he didn't even know existed. And for the first time I was starting to believe I could win. The air in Chloe's apartment that evening was thick with a tense anticipation. We'd ordered Thai food, but it sat mostly uneaten on the coffee table. Every creak of the old building's floorboards, every muffled voice from the hallway, made my heart leap into my throat. Chloe, ever the pragmatist, had devised a Liam defense plan. It involved a can of wasp spray by the door. It shoots farther than mace. Her largest kitchen knife placed strategically on a bookshelf, just for visual deterrence. And her phone pre-dialed to 911, her thumb hovering over the call button. "He's not getting within 10 feet of you," she declared, pacing the living room like a caged tiger. "I've waited 5 years for a legitimate reason to knee that man in the groin." Despite the fear, I had to smile. Her ferocious loyalty was a shield I clung to. My phone, sitting on the table between us, lit up. It was a text from an unknown number, but I knew it was Liam. He was probably using a burner phone now that his own was blocked. "Unknown. I'm outside, Alara. Let me in. We need to talk." The blood drained from my face. I showed the phone to Chloe. Her eyes narrowed. "Hey. Showtime. Remember the plan. You stay behind me. You do not open that door. You are a ghost." The doorbell rang, a shrill, insistent sound that seemed to vibrate through my bones. Chloe marched to the door and peered through the peephole. "He's alone," she whispered, looking smug. She unlocked the door but left the chain on, opening it a bare 2 inches. "What do you want, Liam?" Her voice was pure ice. I could see a sliver of him through the crack. He was wearing a suit as if he'd come straight from the office, and he held a bouquet of white lilies, my favorite. The gesture felt obscene. "Chloe," he said, his voice dripping with condescending charm. "Lovely to see you as always. I'm here to see Alara. Be a dear and tell her I'm here." "She doesn't want to see you," Chloe said flatly. "You need to leave. Now." His smile tightened. "This is between me and my girlfriend. So why don't you run along and let the adults talk?" I saw red. My girlfriend. The possessiveness, the utter lack of respect for the boundary I had drawn. I stepped out from behind Chloe into his line of sight. His eyes lit up with a triumphant gleam. "Alara. There you are. You look different." His gaze swept over my jeans and t-shirt with distaste. "I said everything I needed to say by walking away, Liam," I said, my voice low but clear. "You need to leave. You are trespassing." His mask of charm slipped. "Trespassing? Don't be dramatic. This is a misunderstanding that's gone on long enough." I said I was sorry. He shoved the flowers towards the crack in the door. "I brought you these. Let me in so we can fix this. I've had a hell of a week because of you. Because of me." The audacity was breathtaking. "There is nothing to fix," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "We are broken. Permanently. Now for the last time, leave us alone." His face darkened. The pleasant facade vanished, replaced by the cold, petulant man I knew was lurking underneath. "Or what, Alara? You'll call the police? You wouldn't dare. Think of the scandal. The scandal of you being served with a restraining order for assaulting your girlfriend?" Chloe chimed in sweetly. "Yeah, we're real worried about that scandal." Liam's eyes widened in shock. Ew, what?" "You heard her," I said. "It was filed this morning. If you come within 500 feet of me or my place of work, you will be arrested. This," I gestured to the door, "is a violation. So yes, I will call the police." For a moment he was speechless. He truly hadn't believed I would fight back. He thought a few days of sulking, a bouquet of flowers, and a dose of guilt would bring me back to heel. The shock morphed into pure, unadulterated rage. His face flushed a mottled red. "You ungrateful little bitch," he snarled, his voice rising to a shout that echoed in the hallway. "After everything I've done for you, the clothes, the penthouse, the life I made you, you were nothing before me. A nobody with student debt and stupid, childish dreams." His words were meant to wound, to put me back in my place. But instead of hurting, they felt like a liberation. He was finally showing the world and me who he really was. "You didn't make me, Liam," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You tried to unmake me. And you failed." His composure shattered completely. He slammed his fist against the door, making the chain rattle violently. "Open this goddamn door." That was our cue. Chloe didn't hesitate. She hit the call button on her phone. 911, what's your emergency?" A dispatcher's voice crackled through the speaker. "Yes, I have a man trespassing at my apartment," Chloe said, her voice remarkably steady. He's my friend's abusive ex-boyfriend. He's screaming and pounding on the door. We have an active restraining order against him. Please send someone immediately. She gave the address. Liam heard every word. The fury on his face was replaced by a dawning, panicked realization. This was real. There were consequences. You'll regret this, he hissed through the crack in the door, his voice trembling with rage and fear. You'll be crawling back to me when you're broke and alone. You'll see. He turned and fled down the hallway just as the distant wail of police sirens became audible. The moment he was gone, my knees buckled. Chloe caught me, guiding me to the sofa. The adrenaline crash was immense, leaving me shaking and nauseous. You did it, she whispered, holding me tight. You faced him down. You were a goddamn queen. The police arrived a few minutes later. We gave our statements, showed them the text messages and the record of the restraining order. They took it all very seriously, especially given Liam's social standing. They promised to pay him a visit and reinforce the consequences of violating the order. After they left, the apartment was silent. The confrontation was over. We had won. But the emotional toll was heavy. I felt drained, hollowed out. Seeing the raw hatred on Liam's face, hearing the venom in his voice, it was a chilling confirmation that the man I'd loved had never really existed. My phone buzzed. It was Kaylin. Kaylin, everything okay? I saw the police cars pull away. In the aftermath of the siege, his simple check-in felt like a lifeline thrown into stormy seas. I didn't have the energy for pride or pretense. He was bad. He showed up. We called the police. He's gone now. The phone rang in my hand. It was him. Hey, he said, his voice a soft, steady presence. Do you want to talk about it? Or do you just want someone to sit on the phone with you while you breathe? The option was so understanding it brought tears to my eyes. The second one, I think. Okay. So we sat there in silence for a few minutes. I listened to the quiet sound of his breathing on the other end of the line, a rhythmic, calming counterpoint to my own ragged nerves. I didn't have to be strong or clever or brave. I could just be a woman who was scared and tired, and that was enough. He said I was nothing before him. I whispered into the phone, the words escaping before I could stop them. Kaylin was silent for a moment. Then he said, his voice firm and sure, he's wrong. He found you as a masterpiece and tried to paint over you with his own mediocre colors. The fact that you're re-emerging brighter and more brilliant than before is a testament to what was always there, not what he created. A single tear traced a path down my cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness but of profound relief. He saw me. He truly saw me. We talked for a little while longer about nothing in particular, about a new art exhibit at the museum, about a funny bug in his code. He was gently distracting me, pulling me back from the ledge of my own anxiety. When we finally hung up, the world felt safer. The fear had receded, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. I looked around Chloe's chaotic, colorful apartment. The wasp spray and the kitchen knife were still at their posts, but the immediate danger had passed. This apartment, with its art and its love and its mess, was my sanctuary. It was the opposite of Liam's cold, perfect penthouse. It was real. I had faced the dragon at the gate and I had not been burned. I had stood my ground, protected by the law, by my best friend, and by the quiet, steady support of a man who asked for nothing but my well-being. Liam thought his siege would break me. He thought showing up with flowers and fury would remind me of my place. But all he had done was show me my own strength. And he had inadvertently pushed me further into the arms of the very people who were helping me build a life he could never touch. The regret he would feel was no longer a question of if, but when. And it was going to be so much more profound than he could possibly imagine. The weeks that followed the confrontation at Chloe's apartment were a period of intense, focused reconstruction. My life, once a narrow path dictated by Liam's whims, was now a vast blank canvas, and I was finally holding the brush. My work with Kaylin at Ethelgard was the cornerstone of this new existence. Our days were spent in his sun-drenched office or in the lab, surrounded by banks of computers displaying swirling neural networks and hyper-detailed scans of paintings. I was no longer just a consultant. I was his partner on the Artemis project. Look here, I said one afternoon, pointing to a magnification of a purported Goya. The AI is flagging the brushwork in the shadow of the cape as anomalous. But it's not a forgery. It's a later restoration. The restorer was heavy-handed, using a stippling technique that wasn't common in Goya's time. The AI is right to be suspicious, but it needs to learn the context of repair. Kalen leaned in, his shoulder brushing mine. A simple, casual contact that now sent a familiar, warm jolt through me. He smelled of coffee and clean cotton. So we feed it a database of known restoration work, he mused, his eyes fixed on the screen. Teach it to distinguish between malicious intent and honest repair. Exactly. It's about giving the AI an art historian's intuition. He turned his head, his gaze shifting from the screen to my face. Your intuition is the most valuable asset in this room. The air between us, once professional and cautious, had become charged with a gentle, unspoken electricity. We worked in sync, our minds aligned. The more time we spent together, the more the shell around my heart softened. With him, I wasn't the victim of a humiliating breakup or a socialite from the society pages. I was Alara, the art expert, the collaborator, the friend. We started having coffee outside the office. Then lunches. Our conversations strayed from work to our lives. He told me about growing up in a small coastal town, building computers from scrap parts, his love for stormy weather and old used bookstores. I told him about my mother, an artist who died too young, and how her passion for color and form had shaped my own. I told him things I'd never told Liam. My fears, my silly dreams, my love for bad 80s music. He listened. He really listened. One Saturday he took me to a tiny hidden gallery showing the work of an unknown Japanese ceramicist. It wasn't a flashy, expensive date. It was quiet, thoughtful. He watched me as I examined the pieces, his eyes soft. You have this look you get when you're looking at something you love, he said quietly. Your entire face just opens up. It's like watching someone come home. My breath caught in my throat. No one had ever looked at me with such tender observation. Meanwhile, the legal machinery ground on. Brenda was a force of nature. Liam, realizing the restraining order was ironclad and that I was not bluffing, had shifted tactics. His lawyers were now fighting a bitter, petty war over assets. He was contesting everything from the jewelry he'd given me, which I didn't want, to my right to keep the car that was in my name. It was exhausting and ugly, but it was also happening in a lawyer's office, not my living room. It was a battle I could fight from a distance. Chloe, my ever-faithful general, kept me updated on the social fallout. The story of the cake and the subsequent restraining order had become the scandal of the season. Liam's reputation, so carefully cultivated, was taking a serious hit. The narrative was no longer about a quirky boyfriend and a sensitive girlfriend. It was about a powerful man abusing his partner and facing consequences. I heard Isabella Rossi dropped him like a hot potato, Chloe reported with glee over brunch one Sunday. Turns out being publicly labeled an abuser isn't a good look, even for a billionaire. Who you? I shrugged, swirling my mimosa. It doesn't matter. And it was the truth. His world, the world of gossip and social climbing, felt like a distant, irrelevant planet. My world was here, in this sunny cafe with my best friend, and in a bright office with a man who made me feel seen. A month into my new life, Kalen asked me to dinner. A proper dinner. Not a working lunch, not a coffee. A date. My stomach fluttered with a nervous excitement I hadn't felt in years. I wore a red dress I'd bought for myself, a bold, confident color Liam would have hated. The restaurant was a small, intimate Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in Chianti bottles. It was warm and real and perfect. Over pasta and red wine, the conversation flowed easily. We talked, we laughed, we sat in comfortable silences. It felt natural. It felt right. As we shared a tiramisu for dessert, his hand rested on the table close to mine. The electricity was back, a palpable hum in the space between our skin. Elara, he began, his voice low and serious. I know your life is complicated right now. I know you're healing. And I would never want to rush you or add more pressure. But I need you to know that what I feel for you, it's not just professional respect. It hasn't been for a while. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked into his hazel eyes, seeing the sincerity, the patience, the quiet strength. I feel it too, I whispered, the admission feeling both terrifying and liberating. I'm scared. I'm so scared of making another mistake, of losing myself again. He nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. I'm not him. I don't want to own you or change you or impress anyone with you. I want to be with you. However slowly you need to go. I'm not going anywhere. He laced his fingers through mine. His hand was warm, his grip sure. It was a promise, a question, and an answer all at once. In that moment, surrounded by the gentle clatter of a family-run restaurant, holding the hand of a good man, I felt the last of the ice around my heart melt away. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by a burgeoning, hopeful joy. This was what it was supposed to feel like. This ease. This mutual respect. This feeling of being cherished, not curated. Later, as he walked me to my door, the door of my new, small and wonderfully mine apartment I'd rented with my Ethelgard salary, he didn't try to kiss me. He simply brushed a stray strand of hair from my face, his thumb gently grazing my cheek. "Good night, Alara," he said, his voice rough with an emotion that made my knees weak. "Good night, Kaylin." I watched him walk away until he disappeared around the corner. I leaned against my door, a slow, blissful smile spreading across my face. Liam had tried to bury me in sugar and frosting, to smother me with his dominance. He thought he had erased me. But as I stood there in my own home with the memory of a good man's touch on my skin and the thrill of my own career in my heart, I knew the truth. He hadn't erased me. He had simply cleared the way for me to become. 6 months. Felt like a lifetime. I stood in the center of the city's modern art museum, a glass of champagne in my hand, surrounded by the low, appreciative hum of the city's cultural elite. This was the unveiling of the Artemis Project. The night Ethelgard AI would present our finished product to the world. I was no longer Alara, the humiliated girlfriend. I was Alara Vance, lead art historical consultant for Ethelgard AI, co-creator of a system that was about to revolutionize the art world. I was wearing an emerald green gown, a color of confidence and growth, and it felt like a second skin. The museum's main gallery had been transformed. Large screens displayed the Artemis interface, while priceless paintings from the museum's collection were mounted on the walls, serving as live test subjects for our demonstration. Kaylin was across the room talking with the museum director. He looked devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo, but his eyes found mine through the crowd, and he gave me a small, private smile that still, after all these months, made my heart skip a beat. Our relationship was no longer a secret. It was a quiet, steady source of joy. We were partners in every sense of the word. He had never once tried to dim my light. He only ever worked to help it shine brighter. Nervous. Chloe appeared at my elbow, resplendent in a gold sequin jumpsuit. Terrified, I admitted with a grin. And exhilarated. "You're going to be brilliant. You are brilliant." She squeezed my arm. "And just so you know, he's here." She didn't have to say his name. I knew. I'd seen the guest list. Liam had wrangled an invitation, no doubt through his mother's seat on the museum board. Brenda had advised me to treat his presence as irrelevant. "He's a ghost at your feast, Alara. Don't give him the power to haunt you." I took a deep breath and nodded. "He's just another guest." The presentation began. Kaylin took the stage, his calm, authoritative voice filling the room. He explained the technology with a clarity that made the complex AI accessible. He was a born leader and the audience was captivated. Then it was my turn. As I walked to the podium, a hush fell over the crowd. I saw familiar faces, my parents beaming with pride, Chloe giving me a thumbs up, my new colleagues from Ethelgard. And then on the periphery I saw Liam. He was standing alone, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his expression unreadable. My pulse thrummed, but it was with excitement, not fear. This was my moment. "Good evening," I began, my voice clear and steady. "Art history is not just a record of what was created. It is a story of human genius, of passion, of mistake, and of truth. For centuries, we have relied on the trained eye and intuition of experts to separate the authentic from the fake. The Artemis Project is not here to replace that eye. It is here to augment it, to give it a superpower." I guided the audience through a live demonstration. We used Artemis on a newly discovered sketch, supposedly by Da Vinci. The AI analyzed the paper fibers, the ink composition, the pressure and flow of the pen strokes. Green checkmarks lit up the screen. Authentic. The crowd murmured in awe. Then we moved to a painting attributed to a lesser-known impressionist. The AI began to flag anomalies. The specific shade of cadmium yellow, the texture of the brushwork. I explained the context, pointing to the data, weaving the narrative of the forgery. A collective gasp went up as the screen flashed red. Attribution questionable. High probability of modern forgery. The museum director who had been in on the test confirmed it was a known forgery they used for training. The room erupted in applause. I was in my element. I was powerful, knowledgeable, and respected. I was everything Liam had never wanted me to be. As the presentation wound down and the crowd surged forward to ask questions, I found myself momentarily separated from the group. And that's when he approached. Liam. He looked older. The arrogant set of his shoulders was gone, replaced by a slight slump. There were shadows under his eyes. "Elara," he said, his voice hoarse. I turned to face him, my posture straight, my expression neutral. "Liam." "That was impressive," he said, the words seeming to cost him something. "I had no idea you were capable of all this." "There are a lot of things you had no idea I was capable of," I replied calmly. He flinched. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the dawning, horrifying comprehension in his eyes. He was seeing the woman I had become without him. Confident, successful, radiantly happy. The woman he had tried so hard to suppress was standing before him, more alive than ever. He swallowed hard. "I made a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake." I said nothing. I just waited. "The cake. It was the stupidest moment of my life," he continued, his words tumbling out in a rush of desperate sincerity. "I was an idiot. I was trying to impress someone who meant nothing, and I destroyed everything that meant everything. I lost you. I lost the best thing that ever happened to me." He looked around the room at the evidence of my new life, my new love. "I see you with him. I see what you've built. And I regret it. I regret everything. Every criticism, every time I made you feel small. I lie awake at night remembering the look on your face when you walked away from that party. I was so sure you'd come back. I thought I had you so securely that I could do anything." He took a step closer, his eyes pleading. "I was a fool, Elara. I don't expect you to forgive me. I need you to know that I know what I lost. The magnitude of it is crushing me." I looked at this broken man, this king of a crumbled castle, and I felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, no pity. Just a vast, quiet emptiness where he used to be. "I know you regret it, Liam," I said, my voice soft but final. "But your regret is yours to carry. It has nothing to do with me anymore. You losing me was the consequence of your actions. Me finding myself was the consequence of my choice." His face crumpled. He had been hoping for something, anger, tears, maybe even a flicker of the old love. But my calm indifference was a punishment far worse than any scene I could have made. "I loved you," he whispered, a last desperate bid. "No," I shook my head gently. "You loved the idea of me. The version that fit neatly into your life. You never loved the messy, passionate, ambitious woman I really am. But I do. And thankfully so does someone else." At that moment, Kalen appeared at my side. He didn't say anything. He simply placed a hand on the small of my back, a gesture of pure, solid support. He looked at Liam not with challenge but with a quiet acknowledgement of his presence, and then his gaze returned to me, full of unwavering love and pride. The contrast was devastating. The man who had publicly shamed me and the man who was publicly standing by me. Liam saw it. He saw the unshakable bond, the mutual respect, the deep, quiet love that required no grand, destructive gestures. He saw the life he could have had, the life he had stupidly, arrogantly thrown away for a moment of validation from a woman who was now long gone. The realization was a physical blow. He took a staggering step backward, his face ashen. "I hope you find peace, Liam," I said, and I meant it. Then I turned away from him towards Kalen, towards my future. "Ready to go?" Kalen asked softly. "I think our work here is done." I smiled up at him, the man who had seen my strength in the ashes of my humiliation and had helped me build a palace from them. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." As we walked away hand in hand through the admiring crowd, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The echo of Liam's regret would follow him forever, a ghost of his own making. He had slapped a cake on my face to impress her, thinking I would be fine. But I had left forever. And in doing so, I had not only made him regret everything, I had gifted myself everything. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. The end.